Welcome to Autism ADHD TV. It is the place to be for parents and professionals. I'm your host, Holly Blanc Moses, the mom psychologist who gets it. We dive into all kinds of important information like behavior, social skills, and learning. All right, let's get started. Welcome, Keisha, to the Autism ADHD podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited you're here. I'm going to introduce you really quick. Keisha Pruden is a self-proclaimed country girl. I love that. She lives in North Carolina with her husband, Paul, and their two sons, Aaron and Bryant. Keisha is a licensed psychotherapist, autism advocate, public speaker, blogger, and published author. Her passion lies in helping families create awesome villages for their autistic family members, providing academic support to autistic children, their families, school staff, and other mental health professionals through advocacy, professional development, and psychoeducation. So you and I could talk about 100 things literally together right now. And I love that you are a parent and a therapist.
Yes.
Yes, definitely. And I think it really gives us as providers a different lens that we can truly support, our clients in a way where we are understanding what it is like to parent differently wired kids. So you had mentioned that your boys are also differently wired.
Yes, my oldest son, Aaron, who is now 27, is on the autism spectrum. And my youngest son, Bryant, who's 18 and a freshman in college, has ADHD. And I have ADHD myself. So it's been quite a journey.
It has been, I bet. And that's so interesting. And again, my oldest son is autistic and has ADHD. My youngest son has ADHD. So we're both therapists. So we're kind of mirroring each other a little bit here. We were talking about the importance of advocacy, and it can't start soon enough. You and I both agree. I mean, this is such an important topic. So I'm excited that you're talking with me today about it, because this is something you really specialize in supporting families. We can go in a bunch of directions with this topic because really it impacts everything. But let's first start at school, because that seems to be one of the major areas that parents and providers are really having the opportunity to advocate for children and students.
Absolutely. So before we get into the actual school, I know, and for most states, and especially in the state of North Carolina, free and public education starts at age 3. So our children are eligible for services before they actually enter school. So I always want to put that out there for special needs parents, parents of autistic children, that our children can start receiving free services provided by public school systems at age 3. So if you have children, that are experiencing difficulties and you've already noticed it, they've already been referred for services, just know that is available. So once you enter school, many parents have the fear. I'll just put it out there. They have the fear, the apprehension about the whole special education process, or what can I do or what can I say? And I think that's just because they don't understand the process, if that makes sense. Because when you don't know something, you can fear it. So part of my passion for advocating for autistic kids and their families is explaining the process, which is you start with, okay, my child has an issue or they have a problem. I feel like they may need additional supports at school. So you would start with contacting the exceptional children's department chair of your child's school. Every school has one. And again, that's something that a lot of people don't know, but if you're not in the world of it, you're not aware. So you contact that person and express your desire, your need. My child has these issues. I'm requesting testing. I'm requesting support. And then that person has 30 days to respond and to set up testing. So when after that happens and they have the results, then they call a meeting. Usually an IEP meeting, which is IEP stands for Individualized Education Program, for children, to discuss the findings of the testing and to hopefully move forward with an IEP, which that program or that process is designed to help your child be successful in a school setting with support. If they don't qualify for an IEP, often they can qualify for a 504 plan, and the 504 plan is also designed to help our children with different needs be successful in school. And so each plan, either the 504 plan or the IEP, is designed to put modifications in place and additional supports and services in place so that your child is successful. And it's a simple answer. It takes a while. And so that's why I love walking through the process, holding the hand, sometimes literally, of parents and other caregivers while they go through the process, because it's not overnight and it's going to take diligence and patience to go through the process. But at the end of it, when your child gets their services, receives everything they need, and then they approve academically, then it's all worth it.
I agree. And I love that you were explaining too, you're not, to parents out there, you're not supposed to know all of this just all of a sudden, you're not supposed to. And it can be overwhelming. And what you said is so lovely, is literally almost holding hands, because it can be confusing. And like I said earlier, overwhelming. And you may hear different answers from different people, and that is confusing. So really, it's how do we support families in knowing what their rights are, what their child's rights are, how they access services, and do it in a way that's digestible, that doesn't feel like, oh my goodness, I can't do all of this. It's one step at a time. And like you said, patience, knowing your rights, knowing when to move forward, knowing what the school is obligated to provide. I mean, that really is a big difference.
And I think for many parents, they receive the handbook, the infamous handbook, and they're overwhelmed by that, because that could be 20, 30, 40 pages. And some parents just need help navigating the handbooks for children's rights in a public school system. So what I help them do is, I'll say, what is your core problem? What is the core issue? And then I can pull out, according to this handbook, this is what you do next. This is what they're supposed to do. And then I model what they want, which is to be calm and to be knowledgeable. I model that for them, so then they can move forth in the process calm and knowledgeable. Because as I've told parents, a million times, it's a collaborative effort. But if the other side perceives that you're being aggressive, hostile, then they will shut down. So it's a dance. This is a dance. Like, make no mistake about it. You are dealing with processes and federal regulation. That's true. But you're also dealing with people. So you have to figure out how to be collaborative in a way that the school system, the staff, they're open to what you're saying. And then the end result is your child gets what they need. And I understand the emotional part, because again, like, I've been there and I understand it, being in IEP meetings and just wanting to make sure, that your child gets everything, and getting the feeling that perhaps they don't understand what you're saying, or that they're going to tell you no to what you're asking, or that they tell you no. And how to, I work with parents too on how to, keep your composure, and how to remember what the what the end game is. The end game is you're walking out with accommodations. You're walking out with the extra time on the test. You're walking out with a one-on-one aid. You're walking out with read aloud, for tests. Remember that if you can keep your eyes on the prize, then that can help keep you calm.
I like that you said that, because you're absolutely right. You and I have been not just the provider in these meetings, right? The outside the school provider, but also the parent. And when you're in there and services are on the line for your baby, and I say baby as in, everybody, this is your baby, no matter how old.
They'll always, yes, my oldest is 27. I still say my baby, my oldest baby.
Exactly.
Right.
There's a lot on the table to figure out. And how important it is for those services to come online. And there will be, instead of being surprised, how I talk with my patients, parents as well, there will be no's. There will be. And so knowing that there are no's coming, but also knowing the rights and where you can maneuver. And again, this is still a collaborative, we don't want to be aggressive. It doesn't get us anywhere. The teachers are also trying to support the student and your child. And so knowing that you all have the goal to have the child progress, we want them to have what they need. But again, knowing there will be no's sometimes. I've heard no's, I'm sure you've heard no's, and that's not easy. So I think having somebody with you, like an advocate, and, I have done so many IEP meetings, especially for my oldest son. I literally lost count. Like I do not know how many, but it's been a lot. And I love to have an advocate with me, because in that situation, I need to be mom. And I need to, of course, I have the knowledge. This is the population I support as a psychologist, but I need to be mom in that moment. And I know being mom is not easy. So it's lovely to have somebody, like you were saying, with you, walking you through it. Because when a parent is sitting in there and there's so many feelings, of course there will be, you love your child more than anything. But there may be things you forget because you're nervous or overwhelmed. And then how lovely is it to have somebody next to you that may pick up on something or need to ask additional questions?
Absolutely. I know for many of the parents that I help, the anxiety is very high. So when people ask me, how do you know if you need an advocate in a situation like that? I tell them, it's a few times when you'll need an advocate. If you yourself have issues with, comprehension, if you have issues, just understanding the laws, because if you try to look them up and read them, that can become overwhelming. If you have, just an inability to, if you just can't stay calm during stressful situations, then I would definitely recommend that an advocate help you out, just so that they can sit there. Let me give you an example. Like when I've gone to a meeting, this particular meeting, it really stands out to me. IEP meeting, I was with a grandma, and they were just talking. The people, the IEP people were just talking. Everybody's just talking. So they finished talking. And I looked at the grandma and I said, "Did you understand anything that they said?" And she said, "No." I said, "So, okay." I said, "Let's start again. And this time we're going to be slow. We're going to talk low. And you're going to say again what it is that you feel like her grandbaby needs. And we're going to start with you." And I went from the left and we went around to the right. And I said, "Okay, Grandma, do you understand?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Do you have any questions? Do you have any fears? Do you have anything to add?" And she said, "No." And then I said, "Okay. So now that we know who's gonna do what, now we're gonna say, okay, who do we follow up with in 30 days? So for this service, who do we follow up?" And then you write. So you start writing everything down. So that it's those situations, especially with grandparents, where they need an advocate. Not everybody, needs an advocate. Sometimes I get calls and people say, it's just a simple question and I'll just, answer it, and I'll just keep going because they can take it and go. But just knowing it's good to have someone that knows the federal regulations, and knows those laws, and can just, can do research for you, and, can either aid you before the meeting or, during and after, IEP meetings or certain situations. Especially, this is one that sticks out for me personally. One time my oldest son was suspended from school, and he was suspended for maybe touching someone, I think, hugging them. And when he was younger, that was an issue for him. He just walk up and hug everybody. So I'm just thankful that I knew about manifestation, determination meetings, and functional behavioral assessments and things like that. So what I'm gonna explain that quickly. When your child has an IEP already in place, they already have an individualized education plan, and something happens in school behaviorally, and they could be suspended. What's supposed to happen is the school is supposed to conduct a functional behavioral assessment of the situation. And that means they're going to assess it to see if the situation happened because of their disability or other reasons. And if they determine that your child's behavior occurred because of the disability, then they cannot suspend them. So when he was suspended, I went to the school, calm, in a collaborative manner, and I asked, has there been a functional behavioral assessment done? Which I already knew the answer because it happened that day. They suspended him that day. So I knew it hadn't been done. So when I asked that, the staff looked at me and said, well, what is a functional behavioral assessment? And okay. And so I took that opportunity to educate, because it was then that I really realized that, sometimes you have, faculty and staff that don't know the whole process. So once I explained he needs a functional behavioral assessment done, and then we need to have a manifestation determination meeting after then, oh, okay. And so then they withdrew the suspension. So many, after, and since then, and I really feel like that had to happen in my personal life, because it felt like as soon as that happened, then I had clients that had that issue. They would call and say, oh my God, they suspended, my child with autism or my child with ADHD. And, and they didn't do any, they didn't put anything in place. We didn't have any meetings, anything like that. So that's just an example of how it's good to be knowledgeable, about special education processes, so that our children don't miss, days of school. They only get 100 in North Carolina, only get 180 days. So our kids missing 2 or 3 days straight can really be catastrophic. They
Keisha,
could not
I'm
catch
so
up.
glad that you brought up that specific example. I've seen a lot of that in my Facebook group for parents, which will be linked below. For those of you who are not already in my Facebook group for parents, that's definitely one you want to get into. And professionals. I have one for those professionals as well. So that's what I find, as I'm seeing a lot where my child was suspended, they're suspended for this behavior or whatever, but really is tied to that disability. And there becomes like, oh no, that's not autism or that's not ADHD. I'm like, okay, so how do you separate a child into sections? It doesn't really make sense. But I love that you're questioning that, because a lot of parents don't know to question that. And that's one of the reasons why we're talking today.
Right. Knowledge is power. I'll tell anybody that knowledge is power. And sometimes I'm even in my small rural area, I'll tell a parent, tell them that Keisha Pruden said, da, 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 da. And they're like, oh, okay. And I said, they know who I am. It's not even, and this is what I tell parents. And this is, I really want the parents to hear this part, is that advocacy doesn't even necessarily, you don't have to say anything. I'll tell parents, before that first IEP meeting, I said, take a notebook And I said, even if you don't write anything down, I said, act like you're writing things down. If they believe that you're writing things down word for word, your child will get better treatment. That is the truth. I said, if you go in there and say, hold on, let me get my advocate on the phone, your child will get better treatment. And then I teach them, this is what you write down. This is what's important. These are the questions that you ask. This is how you follow up. I said, because even something as simple as, people don't think about it as, when is the IEP meeting scheduled? And I'll give you an example from my personal life. I realized early that they were scheduling IEP meetings for our kids like 15, 20 minutes apart. And when I realized that, I started asking for my child IEP meeting at the end of the day. I'll say, can I have it at 1:00? That'll give us 2 hours if we need it to get through everything, because you're not gonna, get me in the meeting, run through it, have me sign it, and then move on to the next parent. So when we transitioned from middle school to high school, and I walked into, it was my son's transition meeting, and I walked into the case manager's office, and they laughed, and his case manager said, I told y'all she was coming with a binder. So I told y'all. And I just busted out laughing, because I was like, transition is the biggest part, is the biggest part of my child's future. We've talked about it at home. Now it's time to go. It's time to plan. So sometimes just, your body language will let them know to take you serious. And, I'm just being country, not to mess with you, because they know and they understand that you have some knowledge that they didn't know you had. So a lot of times they don't know what you know until you give them, sneak peeks of, yes, this is what I know. This is what I feel like our children are entitled to. And to also have advocates on the team. My oldest son, Aaron, his speech therapist was his biggest advocate. And that's a surprise. It was a surprise to us. It's a surprise to, a lot of parents, because and she was a part of our main village. For many years. She made sure that he had, supports in school. She told us about the grant money for training that staff gets every year that we didn't know about. She told us, she was like, she was the first one that said, I think Aaron has Asperger's. And we were just like, oh my God, like what? So it's, just figuring out or finding, village members that can help advocate for you when you're not able to, because you're so emotionally in it, is so very important.
I agree. And you touched on so many important things, is, finding those people again, but also, like you said, being knowledgeable and being open to asking those questions.
Right.
And it is uncomfortable. I remember when I first started in this profession before we adopted our boys, but I would be nervous during IEP meetings, and it can be overwhelming when there's a bunch of people at the table, but what's lovely is the learning and your experience. And again, this is going to impact a child for their whole educational life. Like, we really need to pay a lot of attention. And it, like you mentioned earlier, their teachers have so many things to do, and the administration is very busy, and oftentimes they want to rush through, not because they don't care about the student, but because they have so many IEP meetings to get through. But putting, the brakes on a little bit as the parent and saying, this is what I need. And if you do feel rushed and you don't feel like you have enough time, schedule the next one before you leave that IEP meeting. So say, we've got to meet again. We weren't able to get through my questions. We weren't able to get through, my concerns. We need to schedule another one. Sometimes, and I'm sure, Keisha, you find this as well, is, a parent thinking that you only get to meet once a year. That is absolutely not true. You can call IEP meetings as much as you want. So keep in mind, you don't have to wait, and really you don't want to wait, because
Right.
then like at the end of the year, oh, what happened? Where's the data? Where's the information about the progress? Why are we using this same goal again for next year? It doesn't
Right.
make sense. So don't be scared to call another IEP meeting. And as a parent, I do this often. So just to
Right.
let you know, everybody.
Right.
Yeah, so it's definitely something to consider for sure. And again, just to say what our personal perspectives are, is I've heard those no's. Like I said earlier,
Right.
I had been in a meeting where I knew my oldest needed a one-on-one aid. I was immediately told by one of the people in the IEP meeting is we don't do that. I could feel my sort of heart racing, and it was one of those moments where I could have said okay, right? I could have said okay, because I don't want to upset anyone. I mean, I care about those people on the team as well, but I know that as a parent, like every parent that we work with, Keisha, they know their child best.
Right.
They do. They are the experts in their child. And so I knew that he needed that support. I knew he needed it for safety, for lots of different reasons. And so instead of saying okay and agreeing, I said, I don't agree. This is what I want written in the IEP for this meeting, these meeting minutes. And then we're going to this person's going to gather this information. This person's going to gather this. And then we're scheduling a meeting to come back together. So it's important when you hear those no's to decide, do you move forward? And it's okay to do that. It's okay to ask for more. It's okay to say, I don't think this is going to meet my child's needs.
And it's also okay to prepare for the no's, because if you go into, a situation saying, I'm probably asking for something that they're probably going to say no to, what can I bring to the table to fortify my position? Do I bring a therapist, a psychotherapist notes? Do I bring a OT with me? Do I bring, occupational, therapist? What can I bring to say, these are my concerns, which you will go into it written. These are my concerns and these are my supports. And one thing I love to say, how can we work together so that my child gets what he needs and you stay in compliance?
I do think that's really important. Yes.
Was what I'm asking for, and what you do is you throw in the buzzwords, and I'll give you an example. I'll say, this is not an unreasonable accommodation. I've researched this, and this is not unreasonable. These are my supports, and so what can we do to put this in place so that he gets what he needs, and you guys remain in compliance? And because especially now with COVID, a lot of schools. And I understand it. I totally understand it, but they're out of compliance with federal laws because of, staffing, and, staffing was the issue before, and it became even worse during and after the pandemic. So a lot of schools are having issues, especially in North Carolina, being compliant with federal laws around special education. So that's something that parents are grappling with now.
That makes a lot of sense. And again, having that balance, but like you were saying, being prepared for those meetings is really, really important. Now, when we talk about educating others, like you were saying, teachers, they can't know everything about everything because nobody does, and sometimes teachers are educated and they're provided information that may not be accurate. And and not because on purpose, but because there was some misunderstanding or something like that. And they're just trying to get their students, what they need. And again, teachers are my heroes. They are underpaid and overworked, in my opinion.
Right. Absolutely.
So I think, we all have the same goals, but being able to come to the table and say, I'm hearing this is a problem. I'm getting calls, I'm getting emails. What can we do? Like, this clearly isn't working. Maybe this teacher needs more support, and figuring out what that looks like. Now, when it comes to, again, educating others, it's not just in school that we're advocating. We're also really educating the community, right? Because there's so much misinformation. We're, and again, we'll talk about self-advocacy in part 2 of our conversation, because we want to be able to teach our children to advocate for themselves. That's super important. But, you know, when we're looking at services, and again, you know, educating people in the community, in our neighborhoods, figuring out who our people are, being able to answer questions, and that may even be at the store. If something comes up and someone needs information, or maybe it's not time to advocate, maybe it's time to stay quiet and ignore that person who is ignorant. You know, it really depends on the situation, which I'm sure you've been there. You know, there's there's some stories, right? We have both had some stories, I'm sure. But, you know, looking at what can we do by also respecting our children, respecting the information that they feel comfortable providing and how they feel comfortable providing it. Because I always check in if I'm going to share a story, or, you know, if I have plans, I always check in with my kids first. Like, what do you think about that? Well, that's cool, because I want people to understand this. Okay, what do you feel comfortable with me adding to this or not adding to this? Just to make sure that they're comfortable, because that's always number one to me. When we talk about community, you are a speaker.
Yes.
You are an author.
Yes. So really, it's funny that you were just talking, and I absolutely do that with my kids. At this point, they're used to it. Like, our life is just out there. To be honest with you, like, because as a writer, many writers are probably told, write about what you know. So when you go to my blog, KP's World, you will see, my life up there. You see my kids, my husband. I talk about, the autism journey and ADHD, and how my youngest son is just spending crazy money in college, and, just talk about, my life. We have a Facebook page, Our Journey on the Spectrum, and that page is all about, sharing our journey, but also sharing resources for families and mental health, professionals. So basically, on social media, everyone they know my life, whether it's my professional page on Instagram, or whether it's my, on Facebook, or whether it's, my personal page. My part of my life mission, I feel like, has been to share our lives. Like, I learned a long time ago that our family's life, we're living it not just for us. We're living it so that other people can see that, yes, you have, difficulties in life. Yes, you go through trying times, but you can also have fun, and you can, be proud of every success, no matter how big, especially in the African American community. We don't talk about autism a lot. We're not portrayed a lot. And especially in studies, we're not, we're not able to participate for various reasons. So it's been a passion of mine to make sure that people can see us. When I say see, in capital SEE, see us not just as, an autistic family, or a family with an autistic member, but also a thriving, loving, African American family. And that's important. That education is important to me, that people not just know about autism and ADHD, but that they can see happy representations of families. And because autism, is a spectrum disorder, yes, there are some children and adults that need minimum supports, all the way to adults and children that need many, many, many supports. So I'm not being ableist, or I'm not glamorizing autism in any way. I'm aware of all the difficulties, but I think that our stories, we need happy stories out there. Our stories need to be told. And that's part of my social media. When I do public speaking, when I do podcasts like this, I love it. I love it because we feel like, probably as professionals and as parents, that, this is probably common knowledge, that what we talk about so freely, that everyone knows it. But I'm learning now that, there will always be people who need the help. They need the support. They need to see that there's hope. They need to see, happy moments, and they need to, see resilience. And that's what you and I represent as we go out in the world with our podcast and public speaking. And, I wrote a children's book about my boys, our journey on the spectrum. And it's about, my sons, Aaron and Bryant, and how Bryant sees Aaron. And he doesn't see the autism. He just sees that he has an awesome big brother. And so my purpose for writing that book was, to open up the eyes of children, to not be afraid of your autistic peer, but to engage them. So my life is wrapped around, educating and empowering families and people with autism. I love it.
I love that too. And, I'm so thankful for your work. And I'm glad that you brought up your boys, because you probably see this too, where, we need to put this child in a social skills class, which I think is a great thing to always become more and more skilled at things. However, we ignore this part where, what about educating the neurotypical peers in the classroom? And what about, in our community? Because to me, that's what matters most. It's not that, hey, we're trying to take this child who may not socially appear or behave in the same ways and somehow make them neurotypical. And I always say that I think that's ridiculous. How about educating the people around that person so that they're not making judgments that are ignorant. They're not based on, knowledge and understanding. And so that's something I think also we need to bring into the schools and the community as well. So that is so good. So what we'll be doing, Keisha, again, in the next part, the next episode, is talking about that self-advocacy that I know that both you and I are so passionate about. And how we as moms, and not only moms, but providers, have been supporting differently wired kids from, again, as soon as we can, on letting us know what they need, communicating what they need, and being okay with saying, no, I really do need this, or I really don't want this. That's uncomfortable. We really have to start young. Now, if they don't have that skill young, that's okay. There's never, ever a too late time, to start that skill. And really, I think that teaching my kids to self-advocate has really helped me be a better advocate for them. You may agree with that too.
I do.
Okay. Well, Keisha, thank you so much for your time today. It has been so much fun speaking with you. Again, another mom and another therapist. And it's really exciting for me personally.
Thank you for having me. It's always fun. I love it. I love doing podcasts and interviews, especially about this subject. I could talk about it all day. I'm sure you could too. But
Yes. And definitely, for those of you who are listening or watching, please share this episode, because I know that people need it. And then also make sure you're tuned into next week, where we talk about self-advocacy. And then also, Keisha, you had mentioned your social media presence, and I'll make sure to have that information linked in the notes as well, so people can find you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
It was great to talk with you today. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to click that subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. If you like this episode, please share it with someone. It may just be what they need to watch today. If you're a parent, I'd love if you came on over and joined our Facebook group, Autism ADHD Group for Parents. If you're a therapist or educator, come on over to our group, Autism ADHD Group for Therapists and Educators. You're going to find those links right down there in the notes. Thanks so much, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode.
All content provided is protected under applicable copyright, patent, trademark, and other proprietary rights. All content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. No content is intended to be a substitute for professional medical or psychological diagnosis, advice, or treatment. Information provided does not create an agreement for service between Holly Blanc Moses Crossvine Clinical Group, the interviewee, Holly Blanc Moses LLC, and the recipient. Consult your physician regarding the applicability of any opinions or recommendations with respect to your symptoms or medical condition or the symptoms or medical condition of your family member. Children or adults who show signs of dangerous behavior toward themselves and/or others should be placed immediately under the care of a qualified professional.